really interesting. I mean, sadly the pandemic has had an impact on a lot of young people's lives, but those skills and experiences of, that normal are absolutely constant.
For a long time, Prince Edward was one of the most private and quiet members of the British royal family. While his older siblings, King Charles, Princess Anne, and Prince Andrew, were often in the news for royal duties, controversies, or major life events, Edward remained in the background. He rarely made public statements, and when he did, they were calm and respectful. Many people didn't even know much about him. But that all changed when he recently said 5 powerful words. I tried to warn her. These words spread across the media like wildfire. Everyone started asking, who was he talking about? What was the warning? And why did Prince Edward, the Queen's youngest son, decide to speak up now? For someone who had stayed out of the spotlight for so long, this sudden statement caused a wave of curiosity. People began to look deeper into Prince Edward's life, hoping to understand what might have led to such a comment. Most guesses pointed towards Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, who's had a complicated relationship with the royal family since she and Mend. Prince Harry stepped away from royal duties in 2020. While Edward didn't confirm who he meant, his previous interviews and comments about Meghan and Harry now seem more important. In one past interview, he called their departure very sad and admitted that family issues are never easy. Said he wished them happiness and understood how difficult life in the royal spotlight could be. He also spoke about how every royal family member handles pressure in different ways. Some people now believe these gentle words were signs that he had concerns long before things went public. When Harry and Meghan named their daughter Lilibet, a name close to Queen Elizabeth's heart, Edward congratulated them. But reports say the family might have been uncomfortable with the choice, even if they didn't say so publicly. Edward also mentioned in another interview that it's hard when private family matters become big public stories. These small comments, taken together, make people believe that Edward was aware of deeper problems and perhaps tried to speak up earlier. Then came the time when Oprah Winfrey interviewed Harry and Meghan. The interview shocked many people around the world. When Edward and his wife Sophie were asked about it, they didn't get serious, they simply joked. Edward said, "Oprah who?" and Sophie added, "What interview?" While it was meant as humor, many saw it as the couple's way of avoiding controversy. Over time, as Harry, Meghan, and Prince Andrew stepped back from royal roles, Edward and Sophie began taking on more responsibilities. They attended events, supported charities, and quietly became more visible.
After Prince Philip passed away,
Edward and Sophie were among the first to speak to the media. Their calm and kind behavior won public praise. Some began calling them the new faces of the royal family. Through all this, Edward never looked for attention. He simply did the work and stayed loyal. But now, with that one line, "I tried to warn her," he has everyone's attention. It made people look back at all his previous words and realize there might have been more going on than anyone thought. After Prince Edward's surprising comment, people also became interested in his role within the royal family, especially after he was officially given the title of Duke of Edinburgh. This is a very important and respected title, one that once belonged to his father, Prince Philip. On Edward's 59th birthday, King Charles gave him this title, which had long been expected but never officially given until now. For many years, people believed that Prince Edward would eventually become the Duke of Edinburgh, but it took a while to happen. When he got married in 1999, instead of receiving a dukedom like his brothers Charles and Andrew, he became the Earl of Wessex. This choice surprised many people, but later it was revealed that Edward had actually asked for this title himself. After watching a movie called Shakespeare in Love, he liked the character called Lord Wessex and asked his mother, Queen Elizabeth, if he could use that title. She agreed. What's interesting is that Wessex isn't a real place in modern Britain, was an old kingdom from hundreds of years ago. Choosing a name from history rather than one based on a real place showed that Edward had a unique personality. He didn't always follow tradition. Still, many people felt that the Earl title was just temporary, and that he would eventually become the Duke of Edinburgh. When Prince Philip died, the title returned to the crown. King Charles had the power to decide what to do with it. Although there was no rule saying he had to give it to Edward, many believed that this was the right thing to do. And finally, Charles fulfilled that expectation. Edward's wife Sophie also became the Duchess of Edinburgh. The couple now represents a new chapter in the royal family. They are known for their calm behavior, sense of duty, and strong support of young people and charities. Taking on this title means they will carry forward the important work Prince Philip did, especially with youth programs and opportunities for people from all walks of life. The history behind the Duke of Edinburgh title is rich. Prince Philip received it in 1947 when he married Princess Elizabeth. She then became the Duchess of Edinburgh until she became Queen in 1952. Now, Edward and Sophie continue that legacy. It's not just a promotion, it's a deep connection to both his father and mother. This honor also helped people recognize Edward's years of loyal service. Charles became king, and Andrew kept his title despite controversy. Edward quietly worked behind the scenes. The royal family's official website now reflects his new position, and many see this as a sign of how important his role has become. But titles alone don't tell the whole story. What really stands out is Edward's personal life, especially his marriage to Sophie. In a family where many relationships have faced problems, Edward and Sophie have stayed strong. In June 2024, they celebrated 25 years of marriage. Their love story is one of friendship, support, and true partnership. Earlier that same year, on Edward's 60th birthday, Sophie gave a touching speech during a public event in Leeds. She spoke from the heart, calling Edward the best father, a loving husband, and her closest friend. She also said how proud they were to receive the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh titles. Her words brought emotion to Edward's face, and those watching could feel how deep their bond was. Sophie also said that Edward shared many qualities with his father, Prince Philip, both men who believed in family, service, and duty. She ended her speech with a beautiful line, "Here's to you, my darling Edward. May I, along with your family, friends, and so many others, wish you the happiest of birthdays." Edward himself has always shown love and appreciation for his family. In an interview on Alan Titchmarsh's radio show, he called his wife and children brilliant and spoke proudly about their daughter, Lady Louise, and son, James. He made it clear that family means everything to him. What makes their relationship even more special is that Edward and Sophie are the only one of Queen Elizabeth's 4 children who remain married to their first spouse. In the royal world, where pressures are high and relationships are always under public eyes, this is no small achievement. Their marriage has survived grief, public pressure, and difficult family moments. Yet through it all, they have stayed together, supported each other, and built a strong foundation. In a world that often changes quickly, their lasting love has become a symbol of stability in the royal family. But how did this love story begin? Edward met Sophie Rhys-Jones in 1987 at Capital Radio, where she worked in public relations. He was 23 and she was 22. At the time, Edward was actually dating one of Sophie's friends, so there were no instant sparks. However, over time, their friendship grew deeper. They shared common values, respected each other's privacy, and built a connection away from the public eye. Unlike many royal couples whose relationships were rushed or forced into the spotlight, Edward and Sophie took their time. They dated for several years before marrying in 1999 in a simple but elegant ceremony at St. George's Chapel in Windsor. Their wedding reflected who they were: modest, genuine, and not focused on fame or drama. From the beginning, they supported each other in their roles. Sophie became deeply involved in charity work, especially focusing on children, disability rights, and preventing sexual violence. Edward continued to work on youth development through the Duke of Edinburgh Award Program, a legacy started by his father. Together, they showed the world a different kind of royal couple, less flashy, more relatable, and deeply committed. Today, as the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh, they are stepping further into the spotlight, not for scandal or attention, but because their steady presence has become essential to the royal family's future. Prince Edward's voice, once silent, now carries meaning. His words, "I tried to warn her," may remain a mystery. But they opened the door for the world to take another look at him, not as a quiet background figure, but as a devoted son, a loving husband, a loyal brother, and a royal who chose service over noise. In the end, Edward didn't ask to be noticed. He just wanted to serve. But now, finally, the world is watching and listening. Prince Edward, the youngest child of Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip, didn't always appear in the headlines like his brothers. But in 1993, something quietly began to change, not because of a scandal, but because of a connection that would shape his entire life. That year, Sophie Rhys-Jones was hired to manage the publicity for one of Edward's charity events, a real tennis competition. At first, it was just work. But as the two spent time together, they discovered a lot in common. Both loved the outdoors, were interested in the arts, and had a shared sense of humor. Their first official date, according to royal sources, was a friendly tennis match followed by a dinner at Buckingham Palace. This might sound like a fairy tale, but for Edward and Sophie, it was the beginning of something very real and grounded. By the end of 1993, rumors about their romance began spreading. In the press, royal biographer Andrew Morton was one of the first to pick up on it. Instead of denying the relationship or playing games with the media, Edward took an unusual step. He released a public statement asking the press to leave them alone. He said, "Some parts of his life should remain private," and he asked for Sophie's privacy to be respected. This move showed how deeply he cared about her, not just as a romantic partner, but as someone he wanted to protect. As their relationship continued to grow, Sophie was soon seen at high-profile royal events. In 1994, she attended the wedding of Lord Iver, Mountbatten, with Edward, and was even pictured riding in a car with Princess Margaret, a tough royal to win over. Later that same year, she went to another royal wedding, this time for Edward's cousin, Lady Sarah Chatto. These appearances were more than just photo opportunities. They were signs that Sophie was being welcomed into royal circles. Around that time, the media started reporting that Sophie had moved into Buckingham Palace, which usually only happens when a royal engagement is close. The pressure on Edward grew, especially from the media who wanted to know, when will he propose? In an interview with Radio Times, Edward made his frustration clear. He reportedly said that the more people stayed out of his personal life, the more likely it was that he would propose. While he kept quiet in public, behind the scenes, some believe that Princess Diana's explosive 1995 interview temporarily delayed his plans. But love has a way of surviving pressure. During a winter holiday in the Bahamas after 5 years of dating, Edward finally proposed to Sophie. The news was officially announced in early 1999, although a tabloid newspaper leaked it first. When asked later why it took him so long to propose, Edward said he couldn't really explain the delay. He just felt that the timing wasn't right before, and believed that Sophie probably wouldn't have said yes any earlier. It was a rare moment of honesty from a royal who valued privacy above all else. Prince Edward and Sophie got married on June 19, 1999, at St. George's Chapel in Windsor. Their wedding was different from other royal weddings in many ways. It was smaller, more relaxed, and more personal. Only 500 guests attended. The ceremony started at 5 p.m., and women weren't required to wear hats, though the Queen Mother still did. Even Edward's title was different. Most royal men are given a dukedom on their wedding day. But Edward chose the title of Earl of Wessex, a name he liked after hearing it in the movie Shakespeare in Love. Sophie then became the Countess of Wessex. Even though Sophie had experience in public relations, life as a royal wasn't easy in the beginning. In 2001, she was caught in a tabloid sting operation. A fake sheik from a British newspaper tricked her into saying some unpleasant things about senior royals like Prince Charles, Camilla, and even Prime Minister Tony Blair's wife. That event hurt her public image. But what caused the most damage was the idea that Sophie might use her royal connections to benefit her PR business. As a result, she stepped down from her company. Not long after, Edward also closed his television production company, Ardent, which had struggled for years. From that point on, they decided to fully dedicate themselves to royal duties. Their personal life wasn't without pain either. In 2001, Sophie suffered an ectopic pregnancy, a life-threatening condition that could have taken her life. 2 years. Later, in 2003, their daughter Lady Louise Windsor was born prematurely through an emergency C-section. At the time, Edward was on royal duty in Mauritius and couldn't be there for the birth. However, Queen Elizabeth personally visited Sophie in the hospital, a rare and deeply meaningful act that showed how much the Queen cared for her daughter-in-law. When it came to titles, Edward and Sophie made a surprising decision. Instead of giving their daughter the title of princess, they chose a simpler title, Lady Louise Windsor. In 2007, when their son James was born, he was also given a modest title, Viscount Severn. While other royal couples often made headlines for controversy or glamour, Edward and Sophie quietly worked behind the scenes. Over time, they became known as two of the most reliable members of the royal family. Whether it was representing the monarchy during international events or supporting Queen Elizabeth during tough times, they were always there, steady, loyal, and prepared. After Prince Philip died in 2021 and Queen Elizabeth passed away in 2022, Edward and Sophie took on more visible roles. Their children also began finding their own paths, with Lady Louise attending the University of St. Andrews and James continuing his studies at home. On Edward's 59th birthday, March 10, 2023, King Charles made an important announcement. He granted Edward the title Duke of Edinburgh, the same title once held by their father, Prince Philip. Sophie became the Duchess of Edinburgh. Both were deeply honored by the decision, especially since Prince Philip had always hoped that Edward would inherit the title. Was a moment that connected the past and the present, tying Edward directly to his father's legacy. While many royals are known for making headlines, Prince Edward chose a different path. Instead of chasing attention, he focused on meaningful service. Over the years, he's built a legacy based on consistency, charity, and dedication. One of the most important parts of his work has been the Duke of Edinburgh's Award. This global youth program encourages young people to build confidence, leadership, and real-life skills. Edward's connection to the award started long before he inherited the title. In 1986, he completed the gold level of the program himself by hiking across the Scottish Highlands. Later, Cade became a trustee of the award, then chaired its international council, and eventually led the global foundation behind it. In 2023, he was officially named the award's patron, a role that had long seemed like it would one day be his. But this was not just a ceremonial job. Edward worked hard, traveled across the world to meet with young people involved in the program. He raised over £2 million for the cause by playing real tennis. On all 50 known real tennis courts in the world, a record no one else holds. Edward has also been involved with more than 70 charities, focusing on arts, sports, and education. He supports the National Youth Theatre, London, Mozart Players, Northern Ballet, and even the British Paralympic Association. He believes that music, drama, and sports can change lives, especially for young people. In 1999, he and Sophie started the Wessex Youth Trust, which later became the Earl and Countess of Wessex Charitable Trust. This organization has helped hundreds of groups working with children and young adults. Prince Edward has also taken on many of his father's roles, especially in the Commonwealth. He opened the Commonwealth Games in both 1990 and 1998 and became vice patron of the Commonwealth Games Federation in 2006. He's traveled to countries like Australia, Sri Lanka, and South Africa, representing the royal family with calm dignity. In 2019, when he was given the Scottish title Earl of Forfar, he visited the town and was presented with a special tartan made just for him, small but meaningful symbol of connection with the people. Even when criticism came, like during a 2011 visit to Bahrain, where Edward and Sophie were gifted expensive jewelry by the royal family amid human rights concerns, Edward didn't let it distract from his work. Unlike some other royals, he rarely made headlines for controversy. He kept focused on service, whether it was through fundraising, patronage, or personal visits. In recent years, he's also taken over as president of the Royal Windsor Horse Show and become patron of London Youth, a group his father supported for over 70 years. He has twice served as the Lord High Commissioner to the Church of Scotland, a position that reflects the King's trust in his leadership. Edward and Sophie may not be the most talked about members of the royal family, but they are certainly two of the most respected. Their journey hasn't been smooth. They've faced early media storms, personal loss, and public pressure. But through it all, they've remained calm, dedicated, and deeply connected to each other. They've shown the world that being royal isn't just about crowns, castles, and titles. It's about responsibility, love, and service. They've built a strong marriage based on mutual respect and quiet determination. Even after 24 years, they still stand together with the same warmth they had on their wedding day. During the 2023 Order of the Garter ceremony, when they stood side by side with King Charles, Queen Camilla, Princess Anne, and the Prince and Princess of Wales, it was clear Edward and Sophie are not just part of the royal family, they are its foundation. As their children grow and begin their own journeys, Edward and Sophie continue to guide them with the same care and humility they've shown the public. Their daughter Louise, although born into royalty, leads a modest life and attends university like any other young woman. Their son James, too, is being raised with values that go beyond privilege, focusing on responsibility and purpose. In today's world, where headlines are often filled with drama, Edward and Sophie represent something different, something rare. They show that dignity doesn't have to shout, can be quiet, kind, and strong. Their life together may not be the subject of tabloids, but it is the kind of story that lasts. Through quiet service, love, and loyalty, the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh have become more than just survivors of the royal system. They are its steady, shining example. A couple who never needed the spotlight to prove their worth, they earned it. Through years of genuine service and deep family values, and as the monarchy continues to evolve in the 21st century, the quiet presence of Edward and Sophie will continue to remind the world what grace under pressure truly looks like. Whether through youth programs, royal engagements, or moments shared with the public, their legacy is clear, one of purpose, patience, and lasting impact.